first question I want to ask you is, we're approaching nearly 30 years since the incident involving Justin Turner. Are you surprised that so much time has passed and there's not been a conviction or a person charged?
I'm not surprised a bit.
Why is that?
Because it won't ever be solved unless that person confesses.
You think it's going to take a confession for this case to be solved?
Yeah, one or two, either her or her husband.
What do you think went wrong for it to kind of get to the point where we now just need a confession?
Well, of course, it's a long story. And let me tell you before you go to asking questions. First of all, I was the chief investigator. I had spent, but I was back with the sheriff's department. I spent 27 years in police work. I spent the first 5 years with the sheriff's department, next 17 years with SLED, and then the next 6 years back with the sheriff's department. So I was the chief investigator the last 6 years, and I was all over the United States with SLED for 17 years. But this particular day when this thing occurred, I was out of town. It happened on a Friday. I was up in the mountains, and this boy allegedly had left to go to school that morning from his stepmother's house and his father's house. His father was going to work. Of course, he didn't come home on the bus, and she reported him missing. And all of this was done while I was not around. And they began looking for him. Had the rescue squad and everybody out looking for him. And on Saturday, of course, everybody in the family gathered up Friday night. It was that Saturday night. And staying up late at night, family members, you know, and searching. And Sunday morning, before I got back, the father found the boy in the camper, that little camper shell that was in the yard. And they done searched that camper shell a lot of times. I don't know how many times, but a lot of times. And about 11 o'clock that morning, he went there and opened the door and pulled the cabinet right open and said, "Here he is, here he is, I found him." This is what they told me. Of course, he was dead. During the time he was missing, we had a lieutenant that was in charge of juveniles that was kind of the head of the investigation. And when I got back, he was deceased. And it became under my jurisdiction as a homicide. And I started the investigation. And after hearing what happened from different investigators who had been on the scene for 2 days, and brought me up to date, it was, you know, I can't say over the camera this absolutely his stepmother was the one involved in his being missing. But I will say this, she was the person that was involved at the time. I took her and her husband both to Columbia on Monday and put them on a polygraph machine at SLED headquarters. Of course, she lied on every question, very deceptive. And even though she had taken Valium and she was really, spaced out like, but she still failed the questions. And she refused to cooperate. When I say cooperate, she refused to admit that she was guilty. So we made a deal with her, the polygraph operator did, for her to come back another day, because she admitted taking Valium. And take the next day, as a matter of fact, I was supposed to bring her back and put her on there while she was not on Valium. Of course, by that time, she contacted a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Oh, no, you're not going back." Not at all. Because the night before, while I was up there with her, the sheriff told the news media, such like you, that she was a suspect in the case, and we had her up at SLED headquarters. Well, when he told her she was a suspect in the case, the lawyer said no more cooperation. We was first eliminating her from any problems, not as a suspect, but just eliminating her. That's the way I was heading it up. That's the way I was going at. But he just made a mistake and said that she was a suspect in the case, and we could never get her back up there. And The coroner at that time was only 21 years old, I think, Smith. And I asked Smith to let me handle the investigation and don't do nothing at all until I completed the investigation. Brought him in my office, sit him down, just me and him. He acted like he had no problem with it. But the very next day, the news media come out, coroner holding a big inquest. And he screwed it all to hell. And just, I was talking to people, and the only way I could do it would be, it was a very tedious type investigation, and I knew that from the beginning to get her after she wouldn't take another polygraph. I knew, and a lawyer got involved, that it was going to be a very No, it wasn't typical, anything but typical. It was an investigation that was going to be very hard to continue because every bit of evidence that I would use would be circumstantial evidence. And for instance, I had talked to his grandmother, to the little boy's grandmother, which is his daddy's mother, who was in Wilmington, North Carolina. And she was agreeing with me totally that her son knew what was going on and that his wife was the one to kill that boy. And she was helping me in every way. For instance, she was sitting at the house, in the house trailer where they was at on a Saturday night. About between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, she heard him and his wife got up and went outside. He heard them talking she heard them talking on the outside between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And she heard him call his name, Justin's name. But, she couldn't hear every word it was saying because it was through the walls of the trailer. And that's when they moved the body from where it was and put it in that camper trailer, to where he went to himself and found it the next morning at 11 o'clock. And
I've talked to the former deputy solicitor in that case, and I had heard that too, that his body was possibly moved to that camper because they searched it
exactly.
And it wasn't there. Now, the deputy solicitor who in this case, in Walden's case, he says, as in the show when they were examining the body, that he was there all along. Is he right about that?
no, what deputy solicitor you talking about? Steve Davis wasn't even there. He was deputy solicitor later on, but I don't think Davis was even there in '89. Anyway, he was totally wrong about that. The body, several people had searched that same place, and they're not going to go in a little camper shell that sits on the back of a pickup truck without pulling the cabinet door open. They ain't going to search it without that. That's the first place you look,
I agree.
Jesus Christ. Everybody said they searched it before. But I was not there during that time when the searching was going on.
I guess the big question is, though, what would be the motive to kill this little boy?
Well, the motive is this. The boy's real mother lived in Ladson, and she was remarried too. And Smith, the coroner, had made inroads with her, and she believed in him and didn't believe in the sheriff's department, because the sheriff's department got off to a weak start, she said, during the 2 days of searching, and didn't find the body until her ex-husband had to go in. The boy's father didn't find the body. And Smith was wanting to run for for sheriff. He wanted to be the sheriff. Now this is all political. And he was doing anything he could to make it look bad on the sheriff's department at the time. And I didn't know that until I told him to let me handle the investigation. He said no. He said okay, there ain't no problem. Then he comes out in the newspaper with a coroner's inquest, which he blew that all hell. So.
Did you pay attention to any of the inquests, and if you did, what did you make of it? Because she was charged at one point.
No, she was not.
She was charged 9 months later, according to the research I've done.
She was never charged with it in my book. The coroner did. Yeah, the coroner did. He issued a warrant for her. And then they went to hearing before the circuit judge. We never issued no warrant. The coroner did it as a result of the jury. The coroner's jury request, saying that the she should be indicted. So he issues a warrant, the coroner did. And he goes before the General Session Court judge for a hearing. Her lawyer took the case to the courts because he didn't have a probable cause to start with to do what he done, because all the information that was presented to the jury, the coroner's jury, was hearsay type evidence, was never substantiated, none of it. And he got sick when they went to put him on the stand, claiming he had a heart attack. Carried him back in the room. His wife later told me after she divorced him that he was a lying son of a bitch. There wasn't nothing wrong with him. He did that on purpose, which we all know he did that. I mean, and that just blew that case all hell, and that warrant he did, she just thrown out. But there was never a warrant issued through the General Sessions Court, like, you know, through the solicitor's office and the sheriff's department, because I'd have known better than that.
So you believe the motive was to hurt a woman?
Well, you're not letting me finish.
Okay.
And I'm having to get the long ways to get to you.
Go ahead.
But he had, as I told you, he'd made good friends with the real mother, and I was going to need the real mother to help me connect evidence that the grandmother from up in Wilmington was giving me. And I told you she heard them talking outside that night at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is a good indication that that's whenever they moved the body. However, you ask why, what was the motive? She was having, well, you can't call it an affair, but she was messing with that little boy. She'd wash him in the tub, give him a bath. And the night, on Thursday night before he took missing on Friday, he was talking to his mother, which he did every night. And he told his mother, now this is what his mother said. Not to me, but she said it to the family, and the grandmother told me that he called, when she talked to him the night before, he told her, he said, Mama, I got something really important I got to tell you tomorrow when you pick me up. Well, the stepmother took the phone out of his hand and wouldn't let him talk no more. This is from the real mother. She's dead now. Stepmother's dead now. So, and this is what the grandmother told me. Now, she kept me informed on everything going on inside the family. And I was going to use all of these little bitty pieces of evidence to put together a string and tie a knot on each end and get her indicted. Of course, the solicitor was going to have to prove it, but it didn't work that way. She refused to talk to me. The real mother would not talk to me. She was mad as hell because the coroner had messed her mind up. And later on, in the years going by, one of her good friends that was with her at the time told me what I'm telling you, that the coroner had her all screwed up. And she was against the sheriff's department because she didn't think we was doing it right. And because the coroner had told her that.
Now, there were some allegations at some point that, you know, and again, these are just merely allegations, that Pam was given preferential treatment because her family was in law enforcement and she was allegedly having an affair with someone in law enforcement. Is there any truth to that?
I would never even try to recognize such a statement as that, because that's not true. Absolutely not true. I don't know of anybody that she was connected with that would have caused her not to have been indicted. None. I know, because I was the lead investigator, and there's no way that I would have let that happen under any circumstances, because I wanted to solve that case more than anybody did.
And what do you make, I don't know if you've heard this too, again, these are just allegations, that she had 2 other children that were taken away from her. Did you hear anything about that?
Well, she had some problem, but I don't recall exactly what that was. It's been so long ago, but she did have a problem with some of the children that was taken from her, or something to that effect. Yes, it was a whole bunch of things that I was going to tie together, little things, to try to get her indicted. And by doing so, maybe she would have pled guilty to something, you know, because I had the grandmother to go to her son, who was the little boy's father, and get him by himself and to talk to him in detail, that if he would come forward and tell the truth, that by this time he knew what went on. But she had something over his damn head that he couldn't do anything about. What it was, I'm not sure.
And what's sad is, according to what the family has told me, Justin made the second son to pass away so young. He had another son before Justin.
He did.
That passed away from leukemia.
He did.
So, I mean, I just can't imagine what's going through his head, and they're still married.
Yeah, they're still living up in Spartanburg.
She's changed her name as well.
She changed her first name?
What do you think, as far as the evidence goes, like, do you think any of that can be used?
None of what I just told you can be used, because the people are dead. On the evidence about when they was outside the house in the morning, and that she'd received that call from him and said, "I got something very important to tell you," and the stepmother took the phone out of his hand and wouldn't talk to him. No DNA evidence will ever go back and solve this case, because it all had a right to be where it was at. No hair particles can ever be brought back, because it had a right to be where it was at. At the same time, we could have done that. But the little rope that was there, as I remember, there was some hair on the rope, but hell, it had a right to be there. Had every right to be there, because it was where she was at.
And there were some allegations that, you know, the scene was staged with the cylinder object. You know what I'm talking about, when they found him, how they found him. Do you believe it was staged, or do you believe
well,
it was...
not only, that was another piece of evidence that I could have brought into it. That he and her moved that child, and I can hear the solicitor right now, Robert Wallace, would have laid it down on him. He and her went up and moved that child from wherever the body was and put it in that camper, and he's the man went back there and found it the next morning. We could have convicted her if that damn little coroner hadn't messed it up. And I could have got the mother, the real mother, on outside.
Does it still bother you all this time, years later?
Well, it'll always concern me. Absolutely, it will always concern me. But I recognize the fact that there was nothing I could do any more than what I did. When we was having the coroner to fight us the way he was, and everybody knows that. Of course, me being the lead investigator, some people had some things to say, and that I didn't do it. I fuzzled of investigation or something of that nature, which is the damnedest lie I ever was told. Even while I was in Columbia that night, the news media was sitting on the outside, because it had already been reported by the sheriff that she was a suspect, and the news media was sitting outside a sled waiting on me to come out with him and her. Of course, we went out the back door and dodged them. But I also got a call that my sergeant, Danny Dye, was arrested by the DEA for drug operations at the same time. And that's knocked me for a damn loop. Of course, he should have been arrested.
Any time during the investigation were the parents and tried to get their story? And I'm sure y'all did.
The who? Yeah, I talked to the mother would not talk to me.
Yeah.
But I talked to the stepmother and to him, the boy's daddy, separately. Absolutely did. He was at work and he didn't know nothing about what was going on till he come home and found out. He got called and he come home right away whenever the child didn't show up from school. Well, there was an elbow curve where they lived over there, Horseshoe. And if you go in the first street off of 17, you come in down this way and it makes an elbow turn, and as soon as you turn back, right, the little road they lived on was kind of off like this. But right on the other side of the road was a big two-story house there, and right there was the bus stop where they all caught the bus. And the lady lives in that two-story house told me he never showed up for school that morning. He normally walked right down that little road, about like from here to that road there, to the school bus stop. She said he never come, and everybody was wondering where Justin was, why he didn't come. But the bus come and picked up the other kids, and no Justin.
Some years later, there was MC Cannon, who said there was a 7-year-old boy that was key for this investigation, who apparently saw something, or possibly saw something.
That boy was the grandson of the same lady that told me Justin never showed up, that lived in the two-story house. And he said that while he was out there was a couple of loads of dirt the dump trucks had dumped off by the little road going up to back there where his house was at. And that boy said that he saw somebody walk behind that one of them dump truck loads of dirt. But he never seen Justin. He just seen a man walk behind one of them dump truck loads of dirt. Well, that confused a whole lot of things. So I made arrangements with the president of the medical university in Charleston to get me his best psychologist people he had down there. And this boy's mother and father and grandmother went to the medical university in Charleston. And this boy was taken in there by the psychologist from the medical university of Charleston. And they kept him in there for an hour talking to him. And their answer was that he didn't see nobody, that was in his mind that he seen somebody. That was not true. So, of course, words get out like that. Information gets out fast. Bad news gets out because it's people who listen to bad news. But whenever the good news come out, that we couldn't come out and put it in the news media that the little boy was lying, that he was, that wouldn't have served any purpose and caused a lot of hard feelings with us, with his family. So we couldn't even tell him his mother and father that. Because the president of the university was right there with me, and his psychologist people were there. And we met in the room before we ever turned him loose. Honey, you can take it from me, I've said it since 1989. There's only one way, and that's for either her or him to confess.